You've already decided, haven't you? You've already decided that it's time to make a pivot, and maybe nobody else knows it yet. Maybe this is just our secret. Maybe you're still pretending to care about that 5 year plan that you've had, but you and I both know that something has shifted and it's time for a pivot. And once that shift has happened, there's really no turning back. Now that it's time to pivot, let's talk about what it actually looks like. Let's talk about the real, not the perfect LinkedIn transformation version, but like real talk. What's coming now that it's time for your pivot? You're going to want to save this video and come back to it later, but let's go ahead and get into it. First, I want to talk about the truth that really nobody tells you, that no one can prepare you for. It just hits you once you're in it. The first thing is that everyone is going to have an opinion. Everyone's going to have their 2 cents. As soon as they find out, as soon as you share it with them, everyone's going to have an opinion. And it's not like you can make your pivot in complete secrecy, but those around you are going to have an opinion, and it's especially going to come from those ones who have never even made a pivot themselves. They'll be the ones who have the most to say, because you actually making that pivot kind of forces them to confront the fact that there's some things that they've wanted to change too, but they haven't. And it's also going to have them face the fact that you're going to change and you're not going to be the version of yourself that maybe they're most used to or most comfortable with. I remember when my wife was leaving Southern California to move to Arizona. I didn't know her yet. We met in Arizona after she moved, but we would have never met if she didn't make that move. And guess what? All the people, that she knew from California, all had an opinion. And almost none of them had a positive opinion. They're like, why would you leave? Why would you go there? What's over there? They all had opinions that nobody asked for. And, you know, honestly, didn't matter. The other thing that's going to happen though is maybe some of those projections will stick to you, or maybe this will just come from your own head, but you're probably going to wake up a few times, if you haven't been already, around 2 or 3 in the morning. We'll talk later about how to handle some of those like midnight, scaries, or those middle of the night scaries where you wake up and you're like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? We'll talk about that a little bit later. One more thing that no one really tells you or prepares you for is that you might actually grieve the path that you're on. Make that make sense, right? You know you need to pivot. Maybe you're leaving a job that you hate. Maybe you're leaving a relationship that honestly isn't good for you and you know it's not. Whatever the path is that you're leaving, the identity that you're leaving, you might grieve it. And that's kind of surprising. I remember when I left the career that I had poured blood, sweat, tears into, being in the military for 8 years, when I knew that that was coming to a close, that it was time to pivot, there was grieving that had to take place. And no one can really tell you when exactly it's going to hit you, but I want to just give you the heads up that it will. And that's normal, that's expected. And it's honestly okay, right? It doesn't seem to really make sense that like you might cry after leaving a job that you hate or can't stand, but it happens. So let's talk about what's really happening in here and you in your body when you actually start to make that pivot. The first thing that I want to let you know is that if you've never heard this before, is that feeling anxious and feeling excited, in terms of our body, they register the same. They kind of have the same feelings, those butterflies in your stomach, or your heart starts to race, or your palms get a little clammy, or your mouth gets a little dry, or whatever that looks like for you, and however it shows up when you think about that pivot, or while you're inside of it. That anxiety and that fear kind of feel very close to the same, if not the exact same. So now is not necessarily the time to get too caught up in those feelings. If you're feeling them, thinking that maybe you're making the wrong move or you're doing the wrong thing. In fact, if you are feeling really anxious or a lot of fear around the pivot as it's coming up, that actually might just be a part of you that's really excited. Another kind of weird thing that starts to happen in your body with your pivot is you might start to feel like really drained, really exhausted, really tired, even if you're not actually doing anything different yet, even if you haven't actually made the move yet. And that's kind of surprising because I think a lot of the times people make pivoting look sensational, exciting, a lot of fun, but that's not necessarily the reality. You're going to be processing a lot of stuff beneath the surface, a lot of emotions, and that takes a lot of energy, right? That's very consuming. And there's a lot of answers that you might not have, and not having those answers can really take a lot out of you too. And also, there might be a lot of stuff that you've been ignoring, suppressing, pushing down that's gonna start to come up once you actually acknowledge that yes, it's time to pivot. And that also takes a lot of energy as all of that starts to come up and starts to flow through you. So you may be more tired, if not exhausted, as you're in your pivot, and that's okay. Like, I just want to give you that heads up and normalize it. It might not be the most exhilarating and exciting time, even though that's how some people might make it look. Now, with that, there's going to be some days where you're gonna be tempted, or you're really gonna want to crawl back. You're gonna want to go back to that old path that you were on, or go back to that job that you were working. Don't. It's a trap. As you're tired, as you're processing all of this, your nervous system is going to want to go back to what's familiar. It's going to want to take a path of less resistance, a path that seems easier, but in all reality isn't, right? Because you made the pivot for a reason. As tempted as it feels some days, don't go back. Let me turn the page on all of these pivot notes that I have here. Let's talk about the messy middle. Now, as you're making your pivot, there's going to be that period of time where mentally, emotionally, you've left, but physically, you're still there. And that's a tough place to be. The thing that you don't want to do at this point in time is you don't want to take it out on people that have been with you on this path this whole time. Like, don't be a jerk to people. Don't be cold to people, you know? Don't switch up on people just because you're switching up. Now, the other thing that kind of happens in this messy middle phase of actually pivoting is your identity could and probably will come into a crisis. There could be somewhat of an identity crisis of like, well, if I'm not doing this thing, or if I'm not on this path, or if I'm not this person, then who am I? Then what am I gonna do, right? I remember thinking like, well, if I'm not a sergeant, if I'm not in the military, if I'm not wearing this uniform, well, who am I? What's my place in the world? I want to tell you, I'm gonna hold your hand when I tell you this because it's you're not gonna believe me. But this is actually a really good place to be, because now you've got a blank canvas. You can create yourself. You can decide who you want to be. You can decide what's next, what you want to feel next, what you want to do next, who you want to become next. It's actually a great place to be. You really get to pick up the pen and write your answer to that. It's your story to write. Another thing that's gonna happen in this messy middle place is you're gonna start to see pivot success stories everywhere. You're gonna see more YouTube videos like this one. It's kind of like when you get a new car and you start seeing that car everywhere. You're gonna start to see pivot success stories everywhere. Let those inspire you, but don't compare. Don't compare yourself to theirs, because their pivot is their pivot. Their journey is their journey, and yours might not necessarily look the same. So be inspired by them, but Don't compare yourself. Now, I want to talk about what I think, what's helped me in my pivot and what really helps when you're in a pivot. The first thing is you really just want to find one person who gets it. Not your boyfriend, not your husband, not your wife, not your mom, right? But somebody who's actually made the pivot that you're looking to make. Someone who's actually been there, done that, and has the outcome, the success that you're looking to create. And I don't mean like just the money or the title or the whatever, but on some level, the overall experience that you're wanting to have. Someone who's actually done it. Find that one person. They could be someone that you know in real life. They could be someone online. Find someone who did it and be encouraged by them. Ask them questions if you can. If you have to pay them money, maybe pay them money. But get into connection with somebody who has actually done it, because it's really going to help. The other thing that you may want to do that I think helps is write down why you're pivoting. Like, and involve as many senses as you can. Write down how you're feeling about this pivot. Write down, some of the things that you've been hearing that maybe you don't like, some of the things that you've been seeing, some of the tangible things, the tangible reasons about why you're pivoting, why it matters, why you want it, who you're becoming, what you're walking into. Write it down, keep it somewhere handy, and visit it often, reread it often, because making a pivot, making a life change isn't easy. If it's going back to school, if it's leaving a relationship, if it's starting, dating again, if it's moving to a new city, whatever the pivot is for you, you're going to want to remember why, because you're going to face those challenges. And nothing anchors you like your own words, your own reasons. So write it down. And the last thing that I'm going to tell you that helps is stop looking for more signs. Stop waiting for more signs. You're going to see them everywhere and nowhere at the same time. So now's the time to really lean into what you've been feeling and what you've known all along. What comes next after you've made the pivot and you've been walking in the pivot? What comes next? The first thing is you're going to be kind of tired but wired, in a sense. It's like you have this kind of weird feeling of freedom, of like, I can do anything and I'm finally free. But there's also kind of this anxious energy of like, oh crap, like, what have I done? Just expect that. Right around 90 days, it's really gonna hit you in one of two ways. You're either going to be super relieved, or you're going to be totally freaked out, like, what have I done? And the truth is, you might feel both of those things in the same day. So I just want you to know that. You still might be tempted to romanticize your old life. I would tell you, don't text your old boss. Don't text that old person. Don't look them up online. But hey, you might. And if you do, just keep it short. I'm not judging you. But in all seriousness, you might want to just hold back. Give it a little bit more time. Give yourself a bit more time to solidify into this new place that you're in, this new season that you're in, this new identity, this new thing. Give yourself a bit more time to get anchored in it, to get grounded in it before you go looking back and reminiscing and reflecting on what was. Let there be a little bit more distance and a little bit more separation. That's my advice. What's going to happen is one day you're going to realize it's been several weeks before you've even thought about that old path or that old life that you were on. So wrapping this up, you already know it's time to pivot. I already know that you're ready. This is your permission slip. Go ahead and make the move. The timing is never going to be perfect. You could always have more money in your savings account. but there's really never going to be a better time, especially if you've made it this far in the video and especially if you recognize it's your time to pivot. The thing about ready is it's not a feeling. There's no such feeling as ready, especially for something like this. It's simply a decision that you have to make and you get to make right now. And honestly, no one else can make it for you. And the thing that you have to recognize is staying where you are right now, that has a cost too. So you might as well make the pivot. Save this video if you enjoyed it. Come back to it. Drop a comment. Let me know how your pivot's going. Leave some words of encouragement for someone else who maybe happened upon this video. And send this to that one friend. You know who they are. Send this video to them. My name is Sid Scott. Thanks for watching another video. I'll see you in the next one.